From the outside, Pooh Shiesty's rise looks like a classic rap success story. A young artist from Memphis turning raw street energy into chart-topping hits, viral moments, and industry attention almost overnight. But behind the music, behind the headlines, and far beyond what fans usually see, there's a deeper story that rarely gets told. A story involving family ties, quiet power moves, loyalty tested under pressure, and an influence that stretches much further than the booth. Because Pooh Shiesty didn't rise alone, and the foundation behind him may be far more strategic than anyone realized. For years, fans focused on the image, the cold stare, the gritty lyrics, the unmistakable Memphis sound. But while the spotlight stayed locked on the artist, a quieter operation was unfolding in the background. People close to the situation have long whispered about a tightly knit circle that protected, guided, and sometimes controlled the direction of Shiesty's career. Not just friends, not just street connections. Family, a unit that understood how the industry works, how power moves are made, and how influence can be exercised without ever stepping in front of a camera. As Pooh Shiesty's fame grew, so did questions. How did certain doors open so fast? Why did alliances form so quickly? How did he manage to move with such confidence in an industry known for chewing artists up and spitting them out? Some insiders claim the answer lies in a hidden empire built long before the fame. One rooted in loyalty, protection, and a code that doesn't bend easily. A structure that helped shape not just the artist, but the man behind the name. And then came the controversies, the arrests, the viral headlines, the moments where everything seemed like it could fall apart overnight. That's when the background forces became impossible to ignore. Because while the public saw chaos, those behind the scenes saw strategy. Moves were made quietly. Messages were sent without words. And the family presence around Pooh Shiesty became more noticeable than ever. Not loud, not flashy, but firm and calculated. This isn't just a story about rap. It's about power. It's about how family loyalty can become a shield, a weapon, and sometimes a double-edged sword. And it's about the unseen structure that helped lift a rap star to the top and continues to influence what happens next. Because once you understand the role of the Shiesty family, you start to realize this rise wasn't accidental, and the empire behind it may still be growing. Long before Pooh Shiesty ever stepped into a professional studio or signed a deal that would change his life, the foundation of his rise was already being laid at home. Memphis isn't just a city. It's an environment that forges people early, teaches them how to survive, and rewards those who understand loyalty and structure. For Shiesty, family wasn't just emotional support. It was the first system he ever learned to move within. Those closest to him understood the streets, the risks, and the consequences long before the industry ever came calling. That understanding shaped how he moved, how he trusted, and how he handled pressure when fame arrived faster than expected. People often mistake silence for absence, but in reality, the Shiesty family has always operated with intention. They weren't the type to chase cameras or public recognition. Instead, they stayed in the background, observing, advising, and stepping in only when necessary. This low-profile approach allowed Pooh Shiesty to present a raw, independent image to the world, while still benefiting from guidance that many young artists never receive. Decisions weren't made impulsively. Every move, from early collaborations to how conflicts were handled, reflected conversations happening behind closed doors, where experience mattered more than clout. As Pooh Shiesty's buzz grew in Memphis, so did the importance of protection. Local fame can be dangerous, especially in a city where attention brings both opportunity and envy. This is where family influence quietly became critical. People around Shiesty made sure he wasn't navigating early success alone. There was always someone watching the surroundings, managing relationships, and filtering who could get close. Not everyone with access was a friend, and not every opportunity was worth taking. That kind of discipline doesn't come naturally to young artists. It's learned, often from people who've already seen what happens when discipline is missing. When industry executives finally started paying attention, they didn't just see a talented rapper, they saw someone who moved differently. Pooh Shiesty didn't panic under pressure. He didn't overshare. He didn't rush to please everyone in the room. That confidence wasn't accidental. It came from knowing he had a circle that wasn't dependent on the industry for validation. Family provided leverage without ever needing to announce it. And in an industry built on imbalance of power, that quiet leverage made a difference. As deals, negotiations, and branding conversations began, the Shiesty family reportedly played a key advisory role. While Pooh Shiesty remained the face, there were voices ensuring he didn't give up too much control too early. Contracts were questioned. Long-term implications were considered. The focus wasn't just on money, but on survival, surviving fame, surviving scrutiny, and surviving the kind of attention that can destroy artists who aren't prepared. This wasn't the approach of people chasing a quick payday. It was the mindset of people thinking years ahead. The real test came when success arrived fast. Viral records, major cosigns, and national attention can destabilize even the strongest foundations. Suddenly, everyone wants access. Everyone has advice. Everyone claims loyalty. During this phase, family presence became even more crucial. They acted as a filter between Pooh Shiesty and the noise. When mistakes happened, and they did, the response wasn't panic, but containment. Problems were addressed internally before becoming public disasters. And when issues couldn't be controlled, damage control was already in motion. What made this dynamic powerful was the balance. The family didn't try to turn Pooh Shiesty into something he wasn't. They didn't sanitize his image or push him away from the authenticity that fans connected with. Instead, they focused on minimizing unnecessary exposure while maximizing strategic growth. The streets respected him because he stayed real. The industry respected him because he stayed composed. And both sides underestimated the structure behind him because it never demanded attention. This period of his rise revealed something important. Pooh Shiesty wasn't just reacting to opportunities. He was moving within a system that understood risk. Family influence didn't mean control in the traditional sense. It meant accountability. It meant having people who weren't impressed by fame and weren't afraid to tell him hard truths. In a world where yes men destroy careers quietly, that kind of grounding is rare. By the time Pooh Shiesty became a household name, the blueprint was already established. Fame didn't create the structure, it tested it. And while fans were just beginning to notice his dominance, the people behind him were already thinking about sustainability, legacy, and what happens when the spotlight turns harsh. Because in their world, success isn't measured by how fast you rise. It's measured by how long you survive once everyone is watching. As Pooh Shiesty's profile expanded beyond Memphis and into the national spotlight, the stakes changed immediately. Local recognition is one thing, but once the industry starts watching, every move carries weight. This is where the deeper layers of the Shiesty family's influence began to surface in subtle but powerful ways. Fame doesn't just bring fans. It brings scrutiny, expectations, and predators looking to benefit from proximity. During this phase, the people around Shiesty reportedly became even more selective about who had access, understanding that one wrong association could undo years of progress in a matter of hours. What separated Pooh Shiesty from many artists at the same stage was how insulated he remained. While others rushed to chase visibility, he appeared focused, almost guarded. That didn't happen by accident. Family members and close advisors were actively shaping how he interacted with the industry, emphasizing patience over impulse. In private, conversations weren't about viral moments. They were about long-term positioning. Which alliances made sense? Which offers carried hidden strings? Which relationships were genuine? And which were transactional? These were questions that many young artists never ask until it's too late. As his music gained traction, so did the mythology around him. Fans saw confidence. The streets saw credibility. But behind the scenes, there was a clear understanding that image alone wouldn't protect him. The Shiesty family reportedly stressed the importance of separating business from emotion, a difficult lesson for someone whose music is deeply rooted in lived experience. Contracts were not just signed, they were examined. Appearances were not just booked, they were evaluated for risk. Even social media presence became something that required discipline, not just expression. Industry insiders often talk about how certain artists seem prepared when success hits. Pooh Shiesty fit that description. He didn't overshare personal details. He didn't explain himself unnecessarily. He let the music speak while the structure around him handled the rest. This approach created an aura of control, which in turn attracted respect from executives who recognized that he wasn't desperate. Desperation is weakness in the music business, and Shiesty never appeared desperate, because he didn't have to be. At the same time, the family dynamic wasn't without tension. Protecting an artist at that level requires difficult conversations, and not all of them are easy to hear. There were reportedly moments where creative freedom clashed with caution, where ambition pushed against restraint. Pooh Shiesty wanted to move fast, capitalize on momentum, and assert his dominance. The people around him wanted to make sure that speed didn't turn into recklessness. That push and pull is common in rising empires, and how it's handled often determines whether success is temporary or lasting. As collaborations and cosigns started rolling in, the Shiesty family's strategic mindset became even more evident. Not every feature was accepted. Not every opportunity was embraced. Some were delayed intentionally. Others were declined quietly. To outsiders, it might have looked like missed chances. To those inside the circle, it was about protecting brand integrity. Every association sends a message, and the message they wanted was consistency, strength, and seriousness. That level of intentionality is rare, especially for artists still early in their careers. Then came the pressure of expectations. Once the industry decides you're next up, the room for mistakes shrinks. Every lyric is analyzed. Every move is questioned. This is where family loyalty becomes more than emotional support. It becomes psychological armor. While critics debated his future, Pooh Shiesty had people reminding him of who he was before the fame and who he needed to remain after it. That grounding helped him navigate moments where public opinion shifted quickly, something that has broken many promising careers. Behind closed doors, discussions weren't just about music anymore. They were about legacy, about what kind of figure he wanted to be remembered as, about how to maintain respect in the streets without sabotaging longevity in the industry. These conversations shape decisions that fans never see but feel the effects of. The consistency in his image, the firmness in his responses, and the refusal to be pulled into unnecessary drama all reflected a deeper code being enforced behind the scenes. But with power comes risk. The more influence the Shiesty family exerted, the more responsibility they carried. Any miscalculation would be magnified by fame. Any internal conflict could spill into the public. And as the empire grew, so did the pressure to maintain control over a narrative that was no longer just theirs. Fame introduces chaos, and even the strongest structures are tested by it. This stage of Pooh Shiesty's rise wasn't just about becoming famous. It was about consolidating power. The music opened the door, but it was the structure behind him that helped keep it open. While fans focused on chart positions and viral moments, the real work was happening quietly, shaping a career that wasn't meant to burn out quickly. Because in the Shiesty family's vision, success wasn't about one hit or 1 year. It was about building something that could withstand storms, scrutiny, and time itself. As Pooh Shiesty's career continued to climb, the environment around him became more volatile. Success attracts attention, but it also attracts opposition, jealousy, and expectations that can turn supportive spaces into pressure chambers. This was the phase where the Shiesty family's role shifted from building momentum to managing damage. Fame no longer felt theoretical. It was real, constant, and unforgiving. Every public appearance, every lyric, and every association carried consequences that extended far beyond music. The legal troubles that eventually surfaced didn't appear out of nowhere. To those watching closely, the warning signs had been there. The tension between street reality and mainstream visibility, the challenge of maintaining authenticity without inviting risk. When headlines began to dominate conversations, the narrative around Pooh Shiesty threatened to overshadow the artistry. This is where the family structure faced its most serious test. Loyalty became more than words. Decisions had to be made quickly, quietly, and with long-term consequences in mind. Behind the scenes, the Shiesty family reportedly shifted focus toward containment. Public silence became a strategy. Statements were measured or avoided entirely. While fans demanded explanations and critics rushed to judgment, the inner circle prioritized protecting Pooh Shiesty from saying or doing anything that could worsen his situation. In moments like these, chaos is contagious. One emotional reaction can spiral into irreversible damage. Discipline, not defense, became the guiding principle. The pressure wasn't just external. Internally, the weight of expectations grew heavier. Fame amplifies mistakes, and legal scrutiny has a way of exposing cracks in even the strongest foundations. This period reportedly forced difficult self-reflection within the family unit. What could have been prevented? Which lines had been crossed too casually? Where had ambition outrun caution? These weren't conversations meant for the public, but they shaped how the situation was handled moving forward. What stood out during this phase was the refusal to let panic dictate strategy. Many artists crumble when faced with legal pressure, making desperate moves to save their image. Pooh Shiesty's response, or lack of response, suggested a deliberate decision to let time, not noise, do the work. That restraint wasn't just personal, it was collective. The family understood that narratives change, attention fades, and survival often depends on patience rather than reaction. At the same time, loyalty was tested in ways that fame rarely prepares people for. Some relationships weakened under scrutiny. Others disappeared entirely. When the stakes rose, only those with real commitment remained. For Pooh Shiesty, this served as a harsh but clarifying filter. The circle became smaller, but stronger. Family, once again, proved to be the most reliable constant in an environment where alliances shift overnight. The public saw an artist in trouble. The streets saw a figure under pressure. But behind the scenes, the focus remained on preservation. Not just of a career, but of identity. The Shiesty family wasn't interested in rewriting who Pooh Shiesty was to make the industry more comfortable. Instead, they focused on controlling exposure, limiting damage, and preparing for a future beyond the immediate crisis. This period also reshaped how the empire behind him operated. Risk assessment became stricter. Access became more limited. Every interaction was viewed through the lens of consequence. Fame had taught its hardest lesson. Visibility is vulnerability. And while that vulnerability couldn't be eliminated, it could be managed. The family adapted, not by abandoning the foundation they had built, but by reinforcing it. As the storm intensified, something unexpected happened. The narrative began to shift. Silence created space for speculation, but it also prevented self-inflicted wounds. Fans debated, critics argued, and the media cycled through theories. Meanwhile, the structure held. Pooh Shiesty didn't disappear. He endured. And endurance, in a culture obsessed with instant outcomes, is its own form of power. This chapter of the story revealed the true purpose of the hidden empire behind him. It wasn't just about getting to the top. It was about surviving the fall without losing everything. Because in the world of fame, everyone talks about the climb, but only a few are prepared for what happens when gravity pulls back. As time passed and the initial shockwaves began to fade, a new phase quietly took shape around Pooh Shiesty. One defined less by headlines and more by recalibration. This was the period where the Shiesty family's long-term thinking became most visible, even if the public barely noticed it. When the noise dies down, that's when real decisions are made. While outsiders assumed everything had stalled, the structure behind him was actively repositioning, understanding that survival in the industry isn't about constant visibility, but about timing your re-entry with precision. One of the most significant shifts during this phase was how access to Pooh Shiesty tightened even further. The circle that once seemed selective became nearly sealed. This wasn't paranoia, it was strategy. Fame had proven how quickly trust can be exploited, and the family responded by enforcing boundaries that were non-negotiable. Fewer conversations, fewer intermediaries, fewer opportunities for misunderstanding. In an industry that thrives on constant interaction, pulling back was a power move, not a retreat. Behind closed doors, discussions turned toward control, not just of image, but of narrative. The Shiesty family understood that the public version of the story would never fully align with reality, and fighting the discrepancy was pointless. Instead, they focused on ensuring that whatever version existed couldn't cause further harm. Silence wasn't weakness, it was insulation. By refusing to over-explain or over-defend, they avoided feeding cycles that destroy reputations piece by piece. This stage also brought a deeper awareness of legacy. Fame had arrived quickly, and with it came the realization that moments define careers just as much as music does. The family reportedly began thinking beyond albums and streams, asking harder questions about longevity. What does relevance look like after controversy? How do you return without appearing forced? How do you maintain authenticity without reopening wounds? These weren't marketing questions, they were survival questions. At the same time, the streets continued watching closely. In environments where perception carries weight, absence can be misinterpreted. The Shiesty family had to balance restraint with presence, ensuring that silence didn't turn into erasure. Connections were maintained quietly. Respect was preserved through consistency rather than visibility. This wasn't about making noise, it was about not losing ground while the spotlight dimmed. Internally, this period demanded discipline from everyone involved. Fame tests patience, especially when momentum feels interrupted. There were no shortcuts available, no viral tricks to reset the clock instantly. The family's role became part strategist, part stabilizer, reinforcing the idea that careers aren't linear. Setbacks don't signal endings unless they are mishandled. The priority wasn't speed, it was control. What made this phase critical was the way it reframed power. Earlier, power came from momentum and attention. Now, it came from restraint and endurance. The Shiesty family adapted to that shift, understanding that the ability to wait is a form of dominance in itself. While others speculated about what was next, the people behind Pooh Shiesty focused on being ready for when the opportunity finally arrived. This period also revealed how much of the empire's strength came from shared understanding rather than hierarchy. Decisions weren't dictated, they were discussed. Responsibility was collective. Everyone involved knew what was at stake, not just financially, but personally. The cost of failure wasn't abstract. It was real, and it demanded alignment across the entire structure. As months passed, the narrative around Pooh Shiesty subtly evolved. The intensity cooled. Conversations shifted from outrage to curiosity. That transition didn't happen by chance. It happened because nothing reckless filled the vacuum. The family allowed time to do what arguments couldn't: soften perception. In an era obsessed with immediate reactions, patience once again proved to be a powerful weapon. This chapter wasn't flashy. It didn't produce viral moments or dramatic statements. But it may have been the most important phase of all. Because rebuilding doesn't start with noise, it starts with stability. And while the world assumed the story was on pause, the hidden empire behind Pooh Shiesty was quietly preparing for the next move, knowing that true power isn't always visible when it's being built. As the final stage of this chapter unfolded, one truth became impossible to ignore. The rise and survival of Pooh Shiesty was never just about talent or timing. It was about infrastructure. By this point, the Shiesty family had shifted fully into legacy mode, understanding that whatever came next would define how this era of his career would be remembered. The chaos had passed, the noise had softened, and what remained was a controlled silence filled with intention. This was no longer about reacting to the industry. It was about deciding when and how to re-engage with it. The most powerful move during this phase was restraint. In a culture addicted to constant updates, the absence of overexposure created intrigue. Fans began asking questions again, not out of controversy, but curiosity. That shift mattered. The family understood that anticipation is currency. Instead of forcing relevance, they allowed it to rebuild naturally. Every rumor, every speculative headline only reinforced the idea that Pooh Shiesty's presence still carried weight, even without new music flooding the market. Behind the scenes, the structure became even more refined. Risk assessment wasn't just applied to public appearances, but to every future decision. What once felt like instinct was now supported by experience. The family had seen how quickly momentum could turn dangerous, and they weren't willing to repeat mistakes. This didn't mean fear controlled their moves. It meant wisdom did. Each step forward was calculated, not cautious, but informed by everything that had already been lost and protected. What also became clear was how deeply family loyalty had shaped Pooh Shiesty's ability to endure. Fame isolates people. Pressure fractures relationships. But the core around him didn't collapse under scrutiny. It hardened. The people who remained weren't motivated by attention or opportunity. They were bound by history. That kind of loyalty can't be manufactured by success. It only reveals itself when everything is on the line. This stage also redefined what power looked like for Pooh Shiesty. Earlier, power came from numbers, streams, charts, visibility. Now, it came from presence. Even in silence, his name still sparked conversation. That's a level of influence many artists never reach. The family recognized this and protected it fiercely. They knew that overusing visibility would weaken it, while scarcity would strengthen it. In a business built on saturation, scarcity became the advantage. At the same time, lessons from the past reshaped how future success would be handled. The Shiesty family no longer viewed growth as acceleration. They viewed it as stability. Any return to the spotlight would have to align with structure, not disrupt it. Music would come when the conditions were right. Moves would be made when leverage existed. Nothing would be rushed just to satisfy outside expectations. There was also an understanding that the narrative around Pooh Shiesty had permanently evolved. He was no longer just a breakout star. He was a symbol of what happens when street reality, industry ambition, and family power collide. That narrative couldn't be erased, only redirected. The family didn't try to rewrite history. Instead, they prepared to build forward with it, accepting that scars often carry more credibility than perfection ever could. As this chapter closed, the hidden empire behind Pooh Shiesty stood stronger, not weaker. Tested by pressure, refined by adversity, and unified by loyalty, it had proven its purpose. It wasn't designed to create a moment. It was designed to survive moments. And in an industry where careers are often defined by how they collapse, survival itself becomes a statement. What comes next will determine legacy, not popularity. And when the next move is finally made, it won't be impulsive or accidental. It will be the result of patience, strategy, and a family structure that understands one critical truth. Real power isn't loud, fast, or visible. It's quiet, disciplined, and always one step ahead. Because behind the music, behind the headlines, and beyond the public image, the Shiesty family didn't just help build a rap star. They built a system. And systems don't disappear. They adapt, endure, and wait for the right moment to rise again. If you've made it this far, you can see that Pooh Shiesty's story goes far beyond hit records and viral moments. Behind the music is a tightly controlled structure built on family loyalty, strategy, and survival, a hidden empire that helped shape his rise and protected him when everything was on the line. Stories like this remind us that success in hip-hop isn't just about talent. It's about who's standing behind you when the pressure hits hardest. If you want more deep dives into the unseen power structures behind rap's biggest names, like this video so it reaches more people who care about the real stories. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown, exposure, or industry truth the mainstream ignores. Drop a comment and tell us what you think. Was the Shiesty family the key to his survival, or did their influence create more pressure than protection? Either way, this story isn't over, and the next chapter could redefine everything.